Hello and welcome to the Winners Find a Way Show. I am your host, Trent Clark, CEO of Leadership, serial entrepreneur, and we have a special edition today. I am the author of Leading Winning Teams, but today we're not talking about my book, and we're also not talking about what most people know me for as a strength coach for over 13 years, coaching in 3 World Series. Today is all about Lauren Sisler. Lauren Sisler of ESPN. How are you doing?
What is up?
Oh,
How's it
man.
going this morning?
It's so good. Like, it couldn't be better, Lauren. I mean, you have launched your book, Shatterproof. This is an exciting book because we are all talking so much about as athletes, our health, our mental health. You have been through some challenges in your life. And you know, everyone always sees, oh, bright sunshine, Lauren, every Saturday, bringing college football home, sideline shimmy. We love it, right? But you know, we all got a story behind the story, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the thing, right? We all wear labels. And I think that we put labels on people because we think, oh, well, she just has this glamorous job. She's out there covering sports. Don't get me wrong. Love my job. I love getting out there, getting to cover sports, getting to cover college football on game days as a former collegiate athlete. Like, college sports is where it's at. I love it so much. It feels like competition day when I get out there and get ready to take the mic and put the mic in my hand. And then it's it's go time. And I think that we tend to look at the outside perspective and outside perception and say, oh, this person's got it figured out. They've got their life together. They've never walked through challenges. They've never gone through it. How can they ever relate to me, possibly? And then you realize you peel back the layers and we all have a story. We've all gone through something. We all face challenges. We all face trials. We all face tragedies. And it's how you rise up against it, right? It's how you build that resilience. And that's what I want to help people, especially through this book, Shatterproof, is to help encourage people to know that you too can become shatterproof. And that nobody's exempt from it, right? Nobody's exempt from like the difficult circumstances that life is for sure going to throw your way. And don't judge a book by its cover. You know, we're all walking through something, and I just want to lean into that and help people meet them where they're at and show them like, hey, you too can become shatterproof.
I love it. I love it. And you know, it's funny that you say it because like I've got a link in here in the comments right here of how you can get the Shatterproof book right here on Amazon. Click the link, jump in there. You're going to want to get this. I'm telling you, she's gone international. I saw you on Good Morning America. You've just been making the tour. So, you know, special edition here of Winners Find a Way because not everyone gets to have Lauren Sisler. You know, obviously we fell second to Good Morning America.
Oh.
But, you know, it's a close second, which was nice, right? So Lauren, you know, I actually get a little nervous when I talk to people who go, no, I had a perfect childhood. No, nothing ever happened to me. As an abused kid, I was an abused kid at 5 years old. And so I was addressing that, you know, as an adult, because I was one of those guys who like it happened. And then my mind blocked that for about a decade. And then I wake up one day at 16 going, oh my gosh, like I'm sitting in a sex ed class and going, we're describing, 1 out of 4 women, 1 out of 4 male, and they go through this. And I was like, man, you're sitting in a friends of 26. That's like 6 of us have gone through something like this. And then I thought, oh, I feel terrible for my classmate, Julie, Brian. And then it's, wait a minute, that happened to me. And so I hadn't thought about that for years. And then as a teenager, it's like, oh man, like right in the height of like everything, right? It was tough to kind of navigate in that moment. But when I talk to people who haven't been through challenges as a kid, as a young adult, it makes me nervous.
Yeah, how have you? Like, okay, how it's probably there. You just haven't addressed it, right? Like you said, and the compartmentalization, kind of like what you did at such a young age to protect yourself. But I think that you've got to dig under the surface. And I will say it takes a lot of work. And, you know, the way I look at it too, and I really work through this with my therapist is, you know, you can unpack your bags in your grief and your despair and your shame and just live there forever. But what's your quality of life truly going to be? And I think that's where you really have to have the courage, the bravery, and really the honesty with yourself to say, this thing happened. I can't change it, but I can control how I move forward. I can control how I respond to this thing. And then it's doing the work to get past it. And it's never going to leave you. But I think the cool part about it is, and I'm sure you can speak to this, is that you're always going to wear the scars of that abuse that you experienced. You're always going to wear the scars of the trauma and the loss and the challenges, the mistakes, the bad decisions. But also and how you wear those scars, you can either wallow in it or you can use it to build resilience. And obviously, Trent, you've proven that you didn't succumb to such, a terrible experience as a child, and that ultimately you've used it now to shape you and make you a better person and make you a more resilient person. And now look how many people like you have impacted in your life with the work you've done, both in and out of sports. And I mean, it's amazing. And you see that ripple effect, right?
Yeah, I think likewise, Lauren. I mean, this is certainly your story, right? I think people see you on TV every Saturday. They don't know you've ever been through this challenge. This is not, when we talk about those things that we don't always get vulnerable about where we are. I don't walk into Starbucks and go, hey, venti latte. I don't know if you know or not, I was an abused kid, right? We hide our stuff and we tell who we think we could be vulnerable with, which is often a very few amount of people. It's often a handful. But now here you're a person who's on a national stage all the time and openly discussing, hey, these are challenges that we're going through, and helping people now face that challenge, become shatterproof, per the title of your book. And let's take it back. Let's take it back, Lauren, to Roanoke, Virginia. You're an all-star gymnast. You're being recruited. You're going to head to Rutgers. Everything in life is looking good and right at this point. This is everything you've been working for. Is that fair?
Living the dream. Was enrolled in the sport of gymnastics early age of 3. Had no idea that I was going to become, so invested in the sport. Loved the sport. And was really so invested, right, that I knew it was kind of like, all right, this is basically a full-time job. And I knew that the Olympic dream was probably not happening. I ended up growing quite too tall as a gymnast, but I knew that a college scholarship was within reach. So put my head down, middle school into high school, and it was like, I'm going to go for this thing. And it was just the training over 20 hours a week, commuting over an hour each way. So I grew up in Roanoke, Virginia, as you mentioned. And then we actually acquired some land as I was heading into high school, some family property, and my dad really wanted to build a house. So we built a house out on this property. So we ended up moving over an hour away from the gym that I was training at, and continued going there, driving 4 or 5 days a week. And, it was a grind. It was a grind, but it was, as you said, it was like my dream, and I was living it and I was loving it. And yes, there were setbacks. Yes, there were challenges, dealing with injuries all the time. Oh my gosh, am I going to be able to survive this? Can I do it? And just kept pushing forward and said, I'm going to earn this college scholarship, and was so fortunate that Rutgers University still had one left, because I was very late to the party. I had several setbacks that kind of messed up the recruiting process. And Rutgers had a scholarship available and said, we want to offer you, and went for an official visit and fell in love and felt like it was a place that I could call home.
Did you study broadcasting and journalism? Is that what you really wanted to do?
Well, it's funny, no, because I actually had wanted to be a sports doctor. And a lot of that was because I had so many injuries, and I felt like it would be so cool to help athletes get back out on the field of play. And through, medicine, whether that's like an athletic trainer, I just knew that I wanted to be in medicine. I knew that I wanted to be a sports doctor. It was a childhood dream of mine. So it's interesting, because a lot of people that are in the, sports industry or the broadcasting industry tend to have this dream of theirs from a very young age, where they're like waking up at, 3 years old, and they've got microphone in their hand and they're commentating in front of the TV with grandpa sitting in the rocking chair over there, That was not me. However, I will say I was very much a performer. I was always a performer,
Yeah.
The gymnastics and all the things. But the sports broadcasting thing did not even touch my radar until I got a couple semesters into college, when tragedy struck, as I know that we're going to dig into here today.
Yeah, and before we get into the tragedy that strikes, I think there's some really key things that really play a role. My daughter also now 17, a lot of gymnastics, and I watched the teenage girls ahead of her closely about the injuries they were going through. I mean, and they were somewhat catastrophic. I mean, massive ankles, joints dislocated, a lot of knees, a lot of shoulders, a lot of wrists, a lot of elbows. And, and I think it's so funny, that you say that, because I think a lot of us in sports who get hurt, I went through too many surgeries to mention, and people do fall in love with those people that impacted them. Like, wow, maybe I'd like to become an orthopedic. Maybe I'd like to become a physical therapist. This person who helped me get back on the mend, who you connect with. I think that's really impactful.
Yeah, you got the empathy, right? Like, how desperate that person is to get back out there and compete at all costs.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I score very low on the empathy scale, but like, you think like I should have more, right? Like, but like rub some dirt in it, your arm can probably be sewn back on, like I'm terrible at this. And, maybe it's because of the ultra focus. I don't know, but like at the end of the day, I know like my daughter all my 5 kids are athletes, and my daughter has another gear of mental toughness and focus that my boys don't have. Now, maybe it's because she's a girl, but I do believe the gymnastics was a massive factor of, hey, she's a little 9-year-old, level 6 already, a 7, whatever it was. And she's competing on this big stage. There's hundreds of people, the judges, and it's work. It's this day for that day, right? Because the meet will be that day, and this day might be 90, 120 days, 150 days, practice. And then that day comes, and then it's reload and start it up again. This day for that day. And so it's all this prep for what? A 45-second moment, a 3-minute long floor program. I mean, it's relatively short, and bring your A game in this moment. And you think, man, the stress, the pressure in that moment to manage that is a big deal.
Oh, yeah. Well, speaking of that, you talk about catastrophic injuries. My recruitment, wildly enough, they had 1 scholarship left, but oh, by the way, I had to prove myself. I had to compete in front of the head coach at Rutgers at my regional gymnastics competition and on the bars, because they were recruiting. Bars and floor were my best events, and they were recruiting me for both of those events primarily. And I had to get up there and compete the best bar routine I'd ever done. And oh, by the way, the girl that goes before me literally does a release move, rips off the bar, elbow is shooting out the other way, like catastrophic injury. And I'm sitting there watching it unfold, and they've got to get the stretcher out. They got to get her off the mat. She's writhing in pain. I'm watching this all happen, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, like I have to get up here and perform the routine of a lifetime. And I just witnessed this thing, and I don't get to go up there and touch the bars and swing bars again and like warm up and this and that. So crazy. And I'll tell you, you talk about performance, you have another gear, right? You compartmentalize, you get up there and you do the best dang bar routine you've ever done. And really that's what happened. And I stuck the landing. I remember stucking the landing. I saluted Crystal, the judge. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I did it. And then, I'm over there with my parents at the end of the gymnastics competition, waiting, just kind of waiting for Crystal to finish up with her stuff. And she comes over and she says, I'd like to offer you a scholarship. And it was just like, oh my gosh. And it's just crazy too, because as we dive into my story, what people don't realize is like, okay, college scholarship, amazing. And we're in the world of NIL. We're in the world of now players are, getting compensated for their name, image, likeness. And, obviously that was not what was happening back then, and really not even a thing in gymnastics. Like, we're not a tier 1 sport, like people aren't looking at us to, go out and
Livy Dunn might be changing that, but like you could be tier 1 at any moment.
She changed the mold for that for sure. With the sport of gymnastics specifically. I swear to you, I have this like hair that is like swimming.
Can't see it. Can't see it. We cannot see it. But like, I appreciate it. It's not a factor for me. Not a factor for me.
Not a factor for you. But yeah, so what people don't realize is the residual value that scholarship has, and it's not just the scholarship dollars. It's not the money piece of it, right? It's not what's going in the bank account. It is so much more than that. And for me, that proved to be the case in so many ways because of what happened to me my freshman year at Rutgers, when I was studying for my exams, pre-med, doing the thing, living out my dream, thought life was great. And it all comes crashing down.
Yeah. Let's jump into that because, this is a, first of all, this moment of like when I totally appreciate what you just said about what it means. Like, hey, I've been waiting this my whole life. I have worked for all this. And there is a 2-inch shoulder drop when someone says, I want you on our team. You're going to be a contributor. And you're like, this is what I've worked so long for.
Yeah.
And that just euphoric feel, it gives me goosebumps now, right? Because you've worked this day and you start thinking about that at like 10, 12 years old. So now you're talking about 5 to 6 years of this days. So, it's not a couple days. This is now, I've been doing 1,800 this days for that day when someone says, yes, I want you on my Division I college team. And you're a Big Ten athlete, right? And so now you've got this going. Your parents are there to support you. You've just had this euphoric moment. You haven't even finished your freshman year. And tragedy strikes. What happened?
So, yeah. Basically studying for exams, as I mentioned. Midterms were up, and I had picked up the phone and called my parents like I always did. Because here's the thing, like even as an 18-year-old, like I still called my parents every day. My mom wanted a play-by-play, everything I was doing in the gym. She was like all over it. She loved gymnastics, loved the sport, literally just everything. She was so buttoned up. My dad was just like, go out there and have fun, and called my parents, talked to my mom. We talked about a new skill combination I was working on, handed the phone off to my dad, had a conversation about he had just celebrated his 52nd birthday and, was sad that I wasn't going to see him, but we talked about life and school. And he said, look, I love you. Keep making us proud. We're so proud of you. And just keep working hard. And that was it. Hung up the phone, said our goodbyes, said our I love yous. And that life was great. Hung up the phone, was laughing with my roommate, set my alarm clock, drifted off to sleep. And next thing you know, I wake up to a phone call from my dad in the middle of the night. And he said, I need to talk to your brother. And I said, well, what's wrong? And I just could tell in his voice something was wrong. I just need to talk to your brother. And I was looking for my brother's phone number. My brother, Alan, was stationed in the military. He was in the Navy as a parachute rigger. He had just gotten off watch that night. And I guess my dad was just frantically trying to get in touch with him and couldn't find his number. Like the number wasn't working, couldn't figure it out. And I recited my brother's number back to him. No more than 30 seconds went by after I hung up the phone with my dad the first time when he called me back, and there was a long pause, and he said, Lauren, your mom died. And I was just like, what? Like, we literally just talked on the phone. Like, it's the middle of the night. She's seemingly healthy, 45 years old. Like, Dad, what happened? And, unfortunately, he had no explanation. He just said, Lauren, I can't explain it now. Get on the next plane you can, and I'll be at the airport to pick you up. And so I'm just frantically packing my bags, trying to get a plane ticket home. And mind you, this is early 2000s. This was in 2003 when you don't just log online and you find your plane ticket and you just book a flight. Like I'm on hold for 30 minutes. I had $50 in my bank account. My roommate has to use her emergency credit card. It's chaos. Got to get a ride to the airport. Like it is just woo, but that's where it's like athlete mentality. Come on. Let figure it out. And so we get to the airport. I get on that plane. My plane touches down. I grab my bags. I run through the terminal, and I'm looking everywhere for my dad. And instead, my cousin and my uncle pull up, and I'm kind of like, well, this is strange. But then I'm like, my dad's taking care of things at the hospital. We're going to get in the car. We're going to drive straight home. And so as we start driving, nobody said anything in the car. It was just everyone was crying, tears. And then finally worked up the courage. I said to my Uncle Mike, I want to see my dad. Where's my dad? And he turned and looked at my cousin. And then he turned and looked in the back seat of the car, and he looked at me and said, Lauren, I'm sorry, but your dad's passed away too. And I was just like, and I'm sitting in the back seat of this car, middle seat. I can still see where I'm sitting. And I'm just like, how is this my reality right now? These were the two people I love more than anything. The two people that tucked me in before I went to bed every single night. We said our prayers through faith and determination. All things are possible. And literally like that, within hours of each other, both my parents are gone. And I'm just like, how am I going to survive this? And, a lot of decisions had to be made immediately, right? Go to the funeral home, take care of all the funeral expenses, get their, burial plans in order, have a funeral. And then my auntie Linda says, that's my mom's sister, says, Lauren, you're going back to Rutgers. What? Are you kidding me? Like, going back to Rutgers? Like, how am I going to go back to Rutgers right now? Like, I can't even fathom what the next steps in my life are going to be right now. Like, I need a break. I just need to.
Yeah. Stop the world. I want to get off. Like, I need to just.
Let me get off this merry-go-round, right?
Yeah. Regroup.
And she said, you got a commitment to yourself, your teammates, your university. This is what your parents would want. And that was it. And I felt like at the time, like I didn't have a choice, like the choice was made for me, but it was a choice. And I had to buckle up and go back to school. So 2 weeks after burying both of my parents, I'm back at Rutgers, and it is an absolute disaster. As you can imagine, I'm just literally trying to get through, trying to make the grades. I'm doing pre-med courses. It's not easy, right? Yeah. It's not easy.
You're 19 at this point?
18
not
years
even 19
old.
Yet. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm 18. I just turned 18 October before they passed away. And I think that's the crazy part too, is because you think like 18, you're on your own. Like that's technically the legal age that you become an adult. But like, let's be real.
Yeah.
I didn't even know how to write a check when I was 18 years old. My parents always said, focus on schoolwork, focus on gymnastics. We'll take care of the rest. So, while they took care of us, myself and my brother, there were also things that I was so clueless about. And I'm just like, what are we doing here? And the crazy thing is my parents didn't have a will. We go back home that summer, and within 2 hours, everything in our house was literally boxed up, taped up, thrown on the back of a moving truck, auctioned off to the state to complete strangers. No will.
This is straight probate. Straight probate.
Everything gone.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, I'm talking
at the time, by the way, you're 18, your brother's older.
Yeah.
Correct? He's in the military.
He was 21 at the time, yeah.
And he's in the military.
Mm-hmm.
And did they give him the leave to come home? Like he's in disarray too.
Oh yeah. I mean, it was crazy because even him getting home when he got the news that my mom and dad had both died, like it was a disaster because you got to go through paperwork. Like you've got to go through all these chain of commands to even be able to leave. So you're not considered AWOL and like, disappearing. Yeah. Right. So a total panic for him. He gets in the car, he drives home, and then, he's there to pick up the pieces, right? Like he is 21, also still very young and not knowing, how to navigate this thing. He was an adult. He was cashing a paycheck. So at least he had his feet underneath him a little bit more in that regard. It's crazy too, because my brother, people always ask like, how did your brother handle this situation? And it's interesting because I think we handled it very differently and not good, bad, or indifferent, but military, he had already done one deployment right after 9/11. And that was one that my parents and I got to see him come home. And it was just this beautiful homecoming and just what a joyous occasion. And two very proud parents. My dad was military. I was born in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. Like
wow.
This just ran in the family. Right. And my brother had this dream. He wanted to follow my dad's footsteps. And so he goes, deploys. And then, after my parents passed away, my brother did 2 more deployments. And I think in a lot of ways I would call him up just sobbing, crying. And I want to console with my brother, and he's just like, put your boots on, we're going to war. Right. And it's just like,
he's got that lack of empathy, but he's got the Trent Clark lack of empathy. Like, hey, put your game face on.
Yeah.
Whether, you like it or not. And I tell a lot of people, no one cares in your life what's going on. Like it's 7:00 when it's time to perform as an athlete. And that serves you. This compartmentalized deal serves you in a way that you can compartmentalize some things. But meanwhile, there's an abyss going on, and you're sinking in it a little bit. Is that fair?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So
I'm drowning because I'm sitting here, living out my dream, trying to stay above water, failing out of school, literally failing out of school. And let's be honest, and let me back up because you mentioned Big Ten. Rutgers is now in the Big Ten. Rutgers has now got that.
Yeah.
Oh, we were in the Big East back when I was there. And in gymnastics terms, there was no Big East gymnastics. It was the East Atlantic Gymnastics League. So, it was a little different back then. Of course, I go on campus now and I'm just like, oh, look at these facilities. They're beautiful. You get
all these resources.
All these resources. I'm like, this gym. Oh my gosh. It's like, it's like top of the line. I'm thinking, man,
back then it's like you guys are the back east wing of the campus, back. Yeah.
Oh, we were in literally a rec center that was literally a basketball court for like just recreation. And then on the other side, there was a big curtain. And then our gym was on the other side of it. I mean, it was crazy. We had like a foam pit. We didn't have a single rail, but we had like nothing. But we made it work. So all that to say is, I'm back at Rutgers. I'm trying to do this thing and trying to figure it out. But I remember just my coach like sitting me down, like finally after just wallowing in this thing. Here's the thing, right? I was given some time to process, given some time to just be. There'd be days I'd be sitting in the corner of the gym, just, crying, whatever. And people were supportive of that. Hey, what can we do to help you? Sometimes I just wanted to be alone, whatever, by myself. But like eventually it's kind of like, all right, come on. We need to move on. Like we can't sit in this same seat forever. We can't sit in the same spot forever. And I think that's where my coaches and my teammates, maybe it's frustration, but really it's just this love, this deep love they had for me and tough love. So it's like, okay, we love you. You're at Rutgers. We have all these resources. So yes, there were resources galore. We want to help you, but ultimately you got to make the choice to stand up on your own 2 feet and start moving forward, taking baby steps one by one. And we can't do it for you. And that's when I realized like, okay, I'm failing out of school. I'm going to get kicked out of school. I can't keep a scholarship. Right. And the best part is like the gymnastics team. I had a good GPA coming out of high school, by the way. SATs sucked. I took the SATs 3 times and they got worse every single time. So I appreciate that. It is what it is. I guess, I was one of those that had to study my butt off to get the grades, but, and my brother could just literally like go in there and like take a test that he never studied for. And he knew he was going to the military. So he just barely coasted by in high school. He'll tell you that. We laugh about it all the time, but, kind of going through the motions, going through school, trying to like stay above water and doing all these things. So the gymnastics team had like the best GPA of all the athletes, right? And so here's another piece of the competition, right? So you got all these athletes on campus and the gymnastics team always competed with swimming to have the best GPA. And so I remember
and you're bringing them down now.
Bringing them down. And let me tell you, it was not made known to me until finally we got to a breaking point. And then my coach just said, Lauren, like, we got to do something here. And I think they just saw that there was no forward movement, right? I'm just kind of like here, I'm existing. And, that's a hard place to be, now putting myself in their shoes. How do you coach that up? How do you navigate that? Yeah. And I think here's the craziest part of all of it is I lived with so much shame for so many years because of how my parents died. And I would tell this sugar-coated story because people want to know. Of course they want to know. How'd your parents die? I haven't told you yet how my parents died, right? So you're sitting here wondering, okay, is she going to tell us how her parents died? Well, there were years and years and years that went by before I would actually tell people how my parents died because I was so ashamed of it. And even my trainer, somebody that is medically, trained, who is got the credentials, literally never questioned me. So what did I tell people? Mom died of respiratory failure. Dad died of a heart attack. Because I, in my mind, thought that sounded so much better than your parents died of overdose.
Yep.
And I just clung to this mindset, this thing that allowed me to tell this fabricated story because it sounded better. And I felt like it was preserving my parents' legacy. It was preserving my reputation. Because, her parents are addicts. That just suddenly becomes a label. Put a label on you. Put a label on you. And I just felt so ashamed of that. And it's crazy that I literally walked through the remainder of my Rutgers gymnastics career. And even talking to former teammates. I just did a book signing in New Jersey not too long ago. And a couple of my former teammates and Caitlin and Ashley, Kara, a couple others were there. And it was interesting because they literally said, oh yeah, I just remember thinking your parents, like, I remember your mom was taking medicine, and I just remember your dad died of a heart attack. Like everyone believed it.
Yeah.
And no one asked questions because I just fabricated this story because I just could not come to grips with the fact that they died of overdose. And so I ran from it. Even my trainer, who literally is like a medical professional, who is she to question that? So I think about that, you know, and maybe in your position too, as a trainer and someone that's trained people for years and years and years, you don't necessarily have the empathy card, but like that's a tough place to be when you're trying to help someone navigate challenges. You have rules and guidelines through the NCAA that you have to follow. And, you know, there's that, but also it's like, you want to help someone, but also there comes a point where that person has to want to help themselves, that you can only do so much. And that's what I've learned in this process is like, when you're dealing with people that are struggling with substance abuse, when you're dealing with people that are struggling with things, you can love on them, but sometimes you have to lean in and have a little bit of tough love because you got to show them like, hey, you got to want this more than I want it for you.
Yeah. I think there's a couple things. Like one is it's crazy because your parents are the absolute 0.1% of a percent that could ever fall into this category, you know, suburb, you know, well-to-do, blah, 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 fully supportive of their children, very big in the community. No one suspects this is going on. Like no one, where even the fact that there's very little signs that this is going on. So that's, I mean, how they hid this for so many years is amazing to me, right? That's one. Two is you're a decade before the opioid crisis, right? Like people aren't talking about this yet.
Nope.
This isn't front and center like it is now. Three is that you mentioned the strength and conditioning side. I mean, the weight room is a haven for people, right? I tell so many people, Lauren, like my degree in physiology is fabulous. I can really help you heal and get your body prepared for exactly what's going to happen. And there's a lot of mental preparation to that. But I said, man, I should have had a psychology degree, because so many people come and like, oh my gosh, I'm 0 for the last 27. If I don't get a hit, I'm moving down. Like, you know, if I get less than a 7 on this floor routine, I'm out of the starting 5. You know, like all the things that are, you know, you're telling yourself in your mind is coming into the weight room, and because I'm physically going to do something while mentally I'm processing things, because the physical I know is good for me. So I will go and do some prep work, but meanwhile, inside my own head, I'm drowning.
Yeah.
And it's happening all the time.
As the trainer, you're the one that's probably inheriting all that, right? You're having to like navigate. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm seeing it like firsthand. Like, man, you're what's up? Like, what's up? I know you're off. I know something's not right. And the other thing is, I know your weights. I know your work ethic. I know your body language. And the moment it changes, it's like, what's up?
What's up, right? And
you know,
and I think that's the thing too, because you kind of bring that up. How did your parents hide that for so many years? And I think that we all do a great job, especially when it comes to mental illness, things that you can't physically see.
Yep.
It's easy to sort of just brush it under the rug. And I think my parents inherited the shame because somewhere along the line, society tells us that addiction is a bad thing. Addicts are bad people. They have bad character flaws. They're terrible people. And then we're like, wait a sec, we can't let people in on this secret. And I think my dad was an alcoholic. So we knew that growing up. Did I know what that meant? No. Did I have any idea? No, I just knew my mom would be like, get your AA meetings. And they'd get in an argument about it. And then he'd be off to AA meetings and he'd be fine. Compartmentalize, box it up, put it on a shelf. We're good. So, you know, I think that's where, you know, we are so good as human beings sometimes, like that resilience piece of like putting on a show for people, you know, putting out the reps, doing all the stuff, doing all the right things on the outside. But like in here, I was a disaster. And I put up this front because what I did, Trent, was, oh, you're the fighter. You're the overcomer. You've got all the strength. You're the, you know, I look up to you. And then suddenly you're thinking like, am I really that strong? But you got to be strong because everybody's telling you to be strong. So then it was just like, I couldn't break. And all that shame that was inside of me, I just kept stuffing way down there, pushing it down. And eventually it got to a point where it was just suffocating. And on the outside, everybody was like, oh my gosh. And you know, you see it, right? The sideline shimmy, the joy. Because that is true joy. It's also therapy because I used to, and I still do, still get nervous getting on national TV. People say, do you still get nervous? Heck yeah.
Yeah.
When it's like I'm saluting the judges. I'm going to salute the judge. I'm about to go out there and do this routine. I've got a minute and a half to go out and perform my best routine. I got 30 seconds to go out and share a story and to perform it the best way that I can on national TV in front of 2 million people. Of course. So the sideline shimmies help with that. But that's like the joy that I'm pushing out there. And I think that that is where we can get caught up in the outward appearances, right? And I think that's what I want to prove to people also and show people is that you too can find your sideline shimmy, whatever that is, no matter what you've walked through. But when you can find your sideline shimmy, when you can take the shackles of shame and bust them apart, there's this level of exoneration. There's this just amazing freedom that comes with that. And
okay, sorry.
Yeah, and I think that's so important to address here because I think that people get so caught up in having to like find there's like a blueprint. There's a book for like how we're supposed to do life. And it's like, no, like this life, there's nothing that's scripted out. Let's be real. So now it's how do you navigate that? And ultimately, how do you kind of break the walls down and say, like, this is me. I'm going to own it. Shackles of shame, bust them in two. This is my truth. This is where I'm at. And, you know, I want to share that with you and share that with the world.
Yeah. And I love that. I think a couple big takeaways from the book, right? There's just some great stuff. I mean, first of all, this is a walk through vulnerability, right? I mean, it's just like, hey, you've opened yourself up here to all the things, all the life, and I love the self-admission of shame. And, you know, it's hard for me. It's hard for me. You know, I almost want to disassociate that with that, you know, like, hey, that's not my shame. That's their shame. This isn't on me. This is who they were and they erred and I still love them and that's fine. I don't want you to judge them, but I don't have to own that. Like this is, I didn't do what they did. Like, and I have this separation that I want to make and I'm almost like sterile with it. Like I'm cold and I don't know if that's healthy either, by the way, at all, because we disassociate from things that we don't want to be a part of. That's not us. And I'm not going to be falling into that victim of that because I'm not the victim. They, you know, blah, blah, blah. We want to separate, right? But yet, this is our family. This isn't like a colleague at work. I get a new job. This is too close. As you walk this deal, when folks are facing this, you know, when you're talking about becoming shatterproof, do you have a hot list of some things like, hey, tragedy will strike, challenges will occur. These things are going to hit you hard. What's our next step? What should we be thinking going into it, Lauren?
Well, and I think I love that. And that is so true. Everything you just said. And I think really kind of the playbook for that and a couple of the key things. And I think there's a lot and this book covers a lot. And I think that's the one thing that really became fun and enlightening in the process of writing the book because, you know, as you can see, like the cover of the book here, like I'm on the front, I'm on a football field, right? But is it a sports book? No, it's not really a sports book. Are there sports stories in it? Yes. And those sports stories are things that I've learned through the process of being, you know, not only an athlete, but also covering athletes, covering sports for so many years, listening to coaches, leaning into those things and taking these key takeaways. And so how do you become shatterproof? And I think a lot of that really is, and this is kind of what I lean into. It is leaning into resilience. Don't run from not leaning into resilience, lean into adversity, I should say. So it's not running from adversity. It's not running away from the challenges that we're going to face. It's leaning in, it's attacking them. It's attacking adversity head on because ultimately it's what shapes us and it's what makes us who we are. And I started discovering that as I had this opportunity to share these stories of these amazing athletes. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And then I see this response that comes from it. And I'm like, wow, like if only I could be so brave to share my story. Like, look at that ripple effect that we're having. And so to me, it is leaning into adversity and recognizing, because when you're in it, sometimes you don't realize like, wait, this is only building me up for the next time and the next time and the next time. And again, that's where the athlete in you comes into play. The resilience factor, the resilience piece. And I think that there is a gift in being able to compartmentalize, but also a gift to be able to unpack some of that stuff and use it to shape the next step of your life and to help you to grow. Because think about it. When you go back to when you were 18, I don't know how old you are. I just turned 40, so I'm getting old.
I got a lot of years on you, Lauren.
Welcome to the fourth floor. That's what I said. But it's interesting because I think, what I've learned, and if I go back to where I was when I was 18, 19, 20, I'm thinking like, I didn't know anything. And I know nothing. And then you get into your 20s and you think like you're figuring it out. And then you look back on your 20s and you're like, oh my gosh, I had none of this figured out. But it's amazing because you start building these blocks of resilience. And I think that's where you have to be able to zoom out sometimes, because it's this lens perspective, this perspective shift. And you can, again, sit in it and wallow in it, or you can literally pack your bags and dang, move forward on the road of life and celebrate the victories, but also celebrate the losses, right? Because sometimes when you can hold space in your heart for the things that hurt, it gives you more gratitude along the way. And so to me, that's kind of the toolbook. It's leaning into adversity, running towards adversity, attacking adversity versus running away from it. And becoming shatterproof, I use this mantra: fall in love with your story. And I just talked about it, the shackles of shame, the exoneration that you feel when they come busting off of your hands, and you recognize like, this is who I am. And it's almost, you can sit down and you can think about the things that have shaped you. And if you really dig into it, you can say, okay, well, this is how this thing hurt me, but this is how it helped me. And you could literally go through different areas of your life and see that, and start to see the weight shift and recognize that maybe this is how I am. And maybe this is how I'm responding to things because of what I've been through. And I can say that I truly feel this unbelievable joy and gratitude, not because I enjoyed what I walked through, but knowing that I took what I walked through and the tragedy that I went through, and now I'm able to use it to help other people. And I think that's where you find your purpose. So I think those are key pillars in this whole thing. Becoming shatterproof, it's leaning into adversity. It's finding the gratitude that comes with the trials and tribulations that you walk through, finding the upside, finding the glass half full mentality, and shifting that lens perspective, and then truly owning your story, falling in love with it, and giving it out to others, finding a voice and giving other people the permission to have a voice in all of this. And I think that's where you find your purpose, is just that connection with people. And when you are living your life with purpose, then you just feel so much more fulfillment, because you see that ripple effect and you see people being impacted in such tremendous ways that you never even thought possible. And so to me, that's where you start to build up that shatterproof mindset, that shatterproof life that gives you that sense of courage and bravery and purpose that allow you to live out a life of fulfillment.
Yeah, I think it's so good, Lauren. A couple things. One, right in the link there, right in the comments, click on that link. You can get Shatterproof the book, or order it right there on Amazon. So important. Two, I love the idea of running into adversity. I think if you run away from adversity, it stays longer, right? Like, you're going to have to deal with it longer because you chose not to address it, right? So now it lingers into your life, and it's going to affect more things, as opposed to taking an issue and dealing with it right away. I think one of the things about gratitude that's so important is that this life is good. I mean, we have this good life. We are so blessed. And I think this is why challenges in our life are so formidable, is because they're so infrequent. They don't happen very much. To sit here and think like of all the good things that are going on today, and there's going to be thousands and thousands of them, and the few bad things are it's fractional. And yet we will give a ton of energy and time to those three things, right? And ignore the 40,000. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Right?
It's so crazy. Good. It's the same thing on the comments when people want to reach out and social media, this and that. You spend so much time focusing on the negative, the one person that decides to say something negative about you, versus the 1,000 people that are in your corner fighting for you, rooting for you to succeed.
Yeah, I think that's so. I had to put my raincoat on. I remember giving a talk in front of like 400 people. 397 are like, this was impactful, crazy. I've got a plan going forward, amazing. 3 are like, this sports jerk, I don't want to hear more stories. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I should change my whole routine. Like, this isn't working. And I'm like thinking, 3 out of 400, I have no idea what happened before they came in here today. Like, they could be in a bad place. Just, and I didn't have an impact. I got to be okay with, I'm not for
Yeah,
everybody.
be okay with it. And also give them grace. You know, I
Yeah.
think it's easy when I see nasty comments, like I'm like, ugh, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But realize, you know, whatever it is they're going through and, you know, where you are when you're walking faith in that moment, I just say, you know what? Whatever it is you're going through, I just pray that you can get through this and get to the other side. And a lot of times people want to like correct you and say this, and I always just kill them with kindness. I'm like, you know, thank you so much for the feedback. Thank you for telling me I look like a man on TV. I so appreciate it. But you know what? We're moving on. I'm living life, loving life. And then they look back and they're just like, oh, I was expecting her to like just absolutely crush me, you know, or whatever. And
I
I'm
think
like,
that's
no,
what they're hoping for. I think they're hoping for the debate. I think they're hoping for the challenge of it all. Okay, so you know, this is. Let's end with this, Lauren. So much gracious for your time. I know you got a programming meeting at the top of the hour here, and I got to be on a show too. So let's finish with, you know, you've got a PhD in dealing with tragedy and reviewing the tapes on what happened now as a 40-year-old woman to what happened, I mean, over half your life ago. I mean, this is now, hey, I've lived a whole nother life since that moment. And it's fabulous. It's marriage, it's a child, it's ESPN, it's division, you know, it's Division I athlete. There's a ton of graduation. There are all these celebrations. And but people are going through that moment in time today, and it's not great. For this moment, what do you tell someone in that moment?
whew, that is so good because you're sitting in it right now. And I'm going to put it this way because, and I've worked through this with my therapist, and it takes time to even get to this perspective and this shift, because I will tell you, inevitably, you're going to be celebrating life. You're going to be celebrating something great in life. And there's just going to be something that is just creeping on in, you know, emotions. There's always going to be the highs and lows. And with joy comes sadness. But the thing is, I think we live in a world where we feel like we've got to be all in on one side or all in on another. But that's not how this life works, right? You can experience joy and also sadness at the same time. And if you're walking through something, whatever it is you're dealing with, just know that there is good coming on the other side. It is coming. And I kind of look at it like this, like we sort of have flashlights in life, right? We kind of have a flashlight and we can see a little bit in front of us. We can't always see the whole big picture, but that's okay. And I think that's where you just have to lean into your faith and knowing good days are on the way. You're going to get through this each and every day. You're going to wake up. It might just get a little easier. And then you're going to have setbacks. There's going to be something that just gets you. But I would just encourage you to know, like, good things are coming. You just got to sit and you got to, as you said, Trent, think about if we have 1,000 moments in one day, how many of those moments are positive and how many are negative? And start magnetizing yourself to the positive, the good, shifting that lens perspective. And then I think this is one that comes from Nick Saban. And I mentioned this in the book, be where your feet are. And I think it's so easy when we're going through life, even if whether it's a challenge or we just want more, we think, oh, we deserve more. We want to be here. We want to be up here. Come on, come on, come on. Right. But sometimes you just gotta, you gotta take a step back and just be where your feet are, because what ends up happening is you start chasing something your entire life to continue chasing the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, that you literally leave yourself wondering, like, where have I found joy? Because I've always been thinking about the next thing that's going to bring me joy, the next thing that's going to make me more money, or the next thing that's going to give me more accolades. But sometimes you just got to sit and be where your feet are. And even if that is in a traumatic situation or a traumatic challenge that you're facing right now, or just loss or grief or shame, you just got to sit in it sometimes and just try to find patience and try to just bring yourself into that moment, ground yourself in that moment, and know that you are just building resilience little by little, inch by inch, mile by mile. And eventually you're going to get there. And ultimately, the next thing's going to come around and you're just going to be more resilient and more ready to attack it, more ready to lean into it. And again, the hurt never fully goes away, but you are able to build that toolkit, really build that armor that allows you to walk courageously into adversity, knowing that you're going to come out victorious on the other side.
Love it. Lauren Sisler, author of Shatterproof, ESPN superstar every Saturday, Sideline. Look for the Sideline shimmy everywhere. Like this girl, it rocks. We should get like do you have a montage yet of the collage of all the Sideline shimmies?
I need to go back because I've got so many. I mean, I basically do like one a game. It just became a thing, and it goes back to Boise State 2019. I can't remember. It was like 5 or 6 games.
Come on.
The Smurf turf, yeah. So I need to get it's really evolved too from them, but it would be funny to kind of get the full collage of like even just like 3 seconds from each one. Yeah, I'm gonna work on
it should be a video when people buy a book and a gift book for somebody. They should buy too and get the montage of the Sideline shimmy. You know, like with it, you can send them the digital file, but. For Lauren Sisler, myself, well, you know, thank you for joining us. Special edition of Winners Find a Way show. Look for the Shatterproof. Here's her link to Amazon right there. Shatterproof is the new book out. So excited about this book, and man, it is a blueprint walking through some challenges in your life, dealing with it, and it's a phenomenal story. And Lauren gets very vulnerable and tells it through and through, which is incredible. And of course, you can find my book, Leading Winning Teams, on all the areas. Here's my LinkedIn page where you can find that. Yep, you can find Leading Winning Teams. Thank you for joining us on the Winners Find a Way show, this special edition. We are on live every Thursday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific, and our podcasts come out weekly on Fridays. Look for the special edition. We will throw this into the podcast network once we break it all down. But Lauren, we wish you the best so much. So grateful for you coming in and excited about all your book tour and then seeing everybody out there. How can they reach you quickly?
Trent, I appreciate you. Number one, you're awesome. Everybody out there watching, you're awesome. I so appreciate you. Hit me up on social media. Yes, the DMs are open. I can siphon through all the garbage, but I want to hear from you. Hit me up on your DMs at Lauren Sisler. You can also go to my website, laurensisler.com. I've got a little contact form. They come straight to me. So if you want to reach out to me, hit me up. I will get it. I will respond as quickly as I can. Things are a little chaotic and busy, but I promise you, I will get back to you. I will respond. And yeah, just lean in. Tell me your story, what you learned from this. And again, thank you for the opportunity. If you get a chance to read my book, I'd love to get your thoughts on it, how you felt about it, what resonated with you, what you really learned. And Trent, thank you for the work that you do, man. This is awesome. It's been fun getting to know you. I know that we've become fast friends here over the last several months. And just thank you for this opportunity, this platform. Y'all go out there and learn to fall in love with your story.
Love it. Lauren Sisler, everybody, on Winners Find a Way. We'll see you next time.